Let's talk about chapter 7, interpersonal communication. And this chapter is so practical. So we're talking about personal relationships. And in chapter 5, we talked about rules and how when you enter into a relationship with someone, you create a relational culture and you learn what is expected and preferred, and you develop your own traditions. And I just love thinking about the personal relationships, the positive personal relationships that I have had and currently have in my life. And we're talking about friendships, and really the book emphasizes the romantic relationships. And when you think about romantic relationships, there is an evolution that begins. And so in step 1, we have escalation, and you notice someone and you start thinking strongly about that person and developing these passions toward each other based perhaps on physical attractiveness. But we also know that the more you communicate with someone and the better your communication becomes, the more physically attractive that person can become to you. And you begin to talk about commitments and how you might want to spend time together, more time, and you have this hope for the future. And so you start making investments of yourself, of your time, of your energy, and of course, perhaps your money. And your book also notes the psychological responsibility in the relationship usually is assumed by the female in the relationship, and the day-to-day work of the relationship, whether it is cleaning the shared living space or maneuvering the children from place to place, or even scheduling and making appointments for the family. And so I think that is interesting to note, and it's definitely true in my household. Now, after you move past step 1, this escalation phase of the relationship, you'll enter into the navigation phase. This will be the longest phase, and during this phase, you will begin to notice relational dialectics, these tensions that come up as you start having two people and you come together as a couple and develop a couple identity, and you will have to make decisions. So one area is autonomy and connection. When will you stay separate and do things alone? And when will you do things and be connected together as a couple? Making these decisions can sometimes be difficult, especially if you have lived longer alone and independent. It can be hard to decide when to be connected versus when to continue autonomous. Another way is novelty and predictability. When you're first starting out dating and you first enter into a relationship, everything is new and exciting, and you have so many firsts together. Your first restaurant, and your first kiss, and your first time you watch The Notebook together, and the first road trip. And it is so exciting, and you create so many memories. But it also can be exhausting, and there is such a comfort when you've been married for 16 years like I have, and there's predictability, and I know what our traditions are because of the relational culture that we have created together, and I know what to expect, and I no longer have these unrealistic expectations set up from previous backgrounds, but we have become more of a couple, and we've actually connected more than we have stayed autonomous in my relationship. But maybe your predictability comes from all the autonomy that you have created and shared that as normal. Then you move in to another perhaps tension-related area, and that is concerning openness versus closedness. How much of yourself are you really going to share with someone? Are you going to let them into all of your deep, dark secrets? And are you going to save some secrets for yourself, save some mystery? Now, in mystery, framing that way is one of the strategies for coping with the dialectics. Your book mentions several strategies. So if we start with reframing, That is simply just thinking about something in a positive light that might not be positive. So I let my husband have some secrets because I want him to stay a man of mystery in some ways to me. And I don't make him expose everything. And that's just reframing. Or maybe we neutralize and we just compromise. And it's no longer important to have separate checking accounts. And so we compromise and we just put all of our money together. Maybe one of the strategies, one of the ways to deal with dialectics you could try is separation. And we just focus on one problem that we're having and one need that we need to meet. And we separate that out from everything else. Or segmenting, and that is when you separate things out into time frames and you segment parts of your lives and problems that you have to work on those individually. Now, if you cannot work on these tensions inside of your relationship, then your relationship will progress to the third phase, and this is the deterioration phase. Now, the good news is, the hope that you have is that you can enter into the deterioration phase and then you can conquer that and move back into the navigation phase, because I've seen it personally in my own life and lives of other people around me. So it's not the end, and it can feel like the end, especially if you have a person in your relationship who is stonewalling you, refusing to talk about any of your problems and your issues, and refusing to discuss, but maybe they won't always stonewall you, and maybe they'll let you back in and you can communicate. Using a lot of your eye language is great for interpersonal communication and